Koopa Troopas are interesting enemies. A few weeks ago, we tested what happens if you put hundreds of goombas onto a single block, and today, we push the limits of Super Mario 3D World and Bowser's Fury modding by adding hundreds of Koopas and seeing what happens. A giant Koopa might look intimidating, but the funny thing is that if you attack it, a small shell pops out. You might remember this from a custom level I made in Bowser's Fury with giant enemies. At 5 giant Koopas, you see some nice overlap as the Koopas start to run towards you in this level. At 10 giant Koopa Troopas, it's starting to look like a Koopa Troopa colony. It's like a morning rush hour subway ride. There isn't any room to move around. And I love the sound you hear when there are a bunch of Koopa Troopas all noticing you all at once and they start chasing after Mario. At 25 giant Koopa Troopas, this entire corner is starting to get filled up. I wanted to go jump onto some of the Koopas to see what would happen, and I knocked one of the Koopas out of its shell, and the other Koopas are trampling all over this one. It looks like it's trying to get up and get back into its shell. It's knocked down. A broken Koopa, and the other Koopas won't even give this Koopa a chance. They're all just so focused on Mario that they're walking all over their friend. I turned the camera to see this from another angle, and I feel so bad for this Koopa here. I tried clearing out some of the Koopas carefully, but this Koopa's friends still wouldn't let it get up. I eventually ended up clearing out all of them with wild Koopa shells by accident. I added 100 giant Koopa Troopas to this corner, and I was terrified when I saw the Koopas start to overflow up onto this step. I thought I was safe here. This is starting to become like that level where you have to run away from the swarm of fuzzies that chases you through the level in Super Mario 3D World. I got a jump onto one of these Koopas, and that Koopa shell ended up getting me a bunch of 1-ups when that Koopa shell was taking out all the Koopas. And even if there are only a few giant Koopa Troopas left, the friends still stomp all over each other on the chase for Mario. I was worried that 150 giant Koopa Troopas would make the game crash, but the game loaded, and you could hear the pitter-patter of a lot of Koopa Troopa feet running towards Mario. I thought I was safe up here because they've only ever made it up onto the first step, and then I started to realize that some of their shoes were starting to reach up here. And then I realized the Koopa Troopas have been pushed all the way up here. They're being pushed through the cave, and they're following Mario along through the cave. The relentless Koopa Troopas have finally won, and I had my first death to the Koopa Troopas. I wanted to see what would happen if I moved these 150 Koopa Troopas closer. Would they be able to go even farther through the cave? When I loaded up the game, some of them were pushed above each other, some were pushed away, and there's this huge mass of these turtles that are all after Mario, making the game a little laggy. I wanted to take out all these Koopas with a star power-up, so I added a star power-up here and listened to the satisfying sounds of taking out all of these Koopa Troopas. And that made me think, what if you had a level where you had to take out all of these giant Koopa Troopas in a level for a green star? So that's what I did in the Chargin Blockade. It's going to get really crowded in this small room. That is one thing that's for sure. But once the shells start going, you get a lot of 1-ups, taking out a bunch of Koopa Troopas, and you have to be careful to not be taken out. A good strategy is to get the shells going, and then climb up onto a wall where Mario will be safe from both the Koopas and the wild Koopa shells that are flying around, taking out everything that's in their path. And when the green star finally spawns when you defeat all of those Koopas, you might be thinking, what? All you get for completing this level is a little green star like that? That looks like a green star for ants! I was wondering how different this would be in Bowser's Fury, and since we are now at Scamper Shores, I thought we could make the Koopas even bigger. Those piranha plants are looking pretty small in the background right now. With 100 giant Koopas at Scamper Shores, there is a lot going on here. They're kind of walking in a circle when you first get here, like they're performing some kind of rain dance ritual to summon Fury Bowser. And when you take a step away from the island and rest in the water, looking back at Scamper Shores, they actually look kind of peaceful when you look back at them. When you add 300 giant Koopa Troopas to Scamper Shores, there's a lot of overlap between them, and it looks like a giant pulsating mass of Koopas. There are a lot of eyes looking around, and there are a lot of green shoes taking large steps that aren't really going anywhere. And oh yes, what a memorable moment from Bowser's Fury, the level where the giant Koopa Troopas attack Scamper Shores and Mario runs away on Plessie. And if you dive through these Koopas, you see quite the mess as the camera goes through all the Koopa objects like this, but you are safe while you're on Plessie. I was wondering if 600 giant Koopas would crash the game when we tried to load it. The game loads, but oh my goodness, look at those faces! The way the faces spin there really lets you see that there are a lot of Koopas there. You see so many pairs of eyes, and after a moment, their movement starts to vary a bit more, and you see a bunch of laggy Koopas walking around. One of them notices Mario and starts to run towards Mario. I jumped at the right time to land on top of the Koopa, and as the Koopa lands, you can see inside the Koopa's mouth. This is the point of view that a Koopa dentist sees. I never thought I'd get to know what it'd be like to be a Koopa dentist, but here we are. Look at all the details in that mouth. The game kept crashing when I added more Koopas, so I tried shrinking down the Koopas. I shrunk down these Koopas down to regular size before we make them even smaller, and they push each other away and they push each other out. Similar to what we saw happening in my video where we put many Goombas on top of a single block, where you have a Goomba fountain that is just pouring out Goombas. We now have a Koopa fountain that is pouring out Koopas. If you make your way through these Koopas, you can get onto Plessie, and taking out this entire shore full of Koopas when you're on Plessie is certainly very different. You can defeat these Koopas by just making contact with them. As you start to defeat more and more of the Koopas, the game gets less and less laggy, and you can even stand still and have the Koopas walk into you so that they defeat themselves. I wanted to also test this out with very tiny Koopa Troopas, and it is fascinating. It's like a swarm of bees that are expanding from a central circle arrangement. It's like watching an explosion in slow motion. The main mass of Koopas starts to head towards the left after a moment, and we're seeing lots of floating Koopas that are being pushed up by the earlier Koopas. This looks like a swarm of bees in Animal Crossing. Mario has to be careful. You can hear the sound of the Koopas noticing Mario as he gets close, and the Koopas start heading towards Mario. The funny thing about these Koopas is just like the giant Koopas, a regular shell appears after you jump on them. And by the edge of the lake, there are a lot of flying Koopas that are being pushed up here. From an angle like this, they look like little plants or flowers with shadows around them because we just watered them. It's like we're playing a Pikmin or a Harvest Moon game right now. My favorite part about this has to be that when you bounce around like this, almost everywhere that you land, you hit a Koopa Troopa. And when that happens, it looks like a shell is just popping into existence from nowhere because of how small the Koopa Troopas are. And you'll notice that the dust clouds that the Koopas leave are bigger than the Koopas themselves. And at the perfect moment with the snapshot feature, we took this heartwarming photograph where Mario decides to return a shell to a Koopa Troopa. After a lot of bouncing around on shells, you start to defeat a lot of the Koopa Troopas and the game becomes a lot less laggy. It feels a bit weird to see the game running smoothly after seeing it so laggy for so long. You might also be interested in how big you could make Goombas, or how big you could make Bowser Jr, or what happens if you stretch out these characters. I have all kinds of videos about testing what is possible in games, and you might find something that you enjoy. I hope that you all have a fantastic day ahead of you. Thank you so much for watching this video, and take care, everybody.